Okay, so let's talk about getting the best sound with the StudioLive. I keep mentioning a little bit about how much power is in the mixer to be able to get the best sound because we have a bunch of processing, we have a bunch of DSP. Really the heart of the StudioLive is this blue section right in the middle. We call it the fat channel. And basically, this is all of your EQ and dynamics for any selected channel. So if I select channel 13, here's all my EQ and dynamics for channel 13. If I select channel 20, here's all of my EQ and dynamics for that channel. If I select a subgroup, you notice there's a select button right here by the subgroups. Now I can EQ and compress my subgroup. In fact, there are select buttons all over this board. In fact, if you want to see what they look like, anywhere where you see a blinking light right now is where you can apply a fat channel, the full fat channel, which includes all of these components. And the reason why that's cool is that we really tried to design this board to give you the maximum amount of control and not to limit you with the amount of DSP. A lot of times you might want to EQ and compress a particular channel, and then you might want to assign that to a subgroup and EQ and compress that, then assign it to an aux send, and you might want to make a tweak to your auxes with EQ and compression and dynamics. You can do that as well with the fat channel. So let's just take a look at what the fat channel is made up of on the StudioLive 24. So if I start all the way over, the first knob is a high-pass filter that's variable. So basically it allows me to sweep out lower frequencies. And, so if I have it set to 180 hertz, what that means is everything below 180 hertz is completely taken out of my signal. So it really helps you to clean up low end on the stage. The next component right here is a frequency tunable noise gate. So this allows you to get rid of bleed over on microphones, really helpful on drums. So you've got a key filter that allows you to pinpoint what frequency you want to isolate. And then you've got threshold, range, attack and release settings for the gate, key listen mode so you can monitor this in your headphones. It has a downward expander as well. It's a really sophisticated full-featured noise gate. The next component is the compressor. Compressor is very similar to what you'll find on almost any outboard compressor. Threshold, ratio, attack, release, gain makeup. And we'll talk about that and how that works in a second. The next component is a dedicated brick wall limiter with threshold. And so this allows me to set a ceiling at which, it basically stops the signal from getting any louder than whatever I set that threshold to. The next component is a 4-band fully parametric EQ. So I've got low, mid, and high. And on each of these 4 bands, I can sweep the frequency. I can control the width of the bandwidth. So I can, do a really narrow notch or a really wide, EQ curve. And then I've got gain control to cut and boost. And I have this on each of the 4 bands, and they're each band is individually selectable on or off, plus I have a master EQ on and off. So it really allows you to hear what you're doing before and after. The next component is a pan control. So this allows me to pan left and right. And then it also will allow you right here, the next button is stereo link button. So if I have, let's say, drum overheads on channel 7, if I hit the link button in now, it makes a stereo pair. Notice it pans them hard left and hard right. One thing I really like is when you link 2 channels together, you can also adjust the stereo spread of those 2 channels. It's not just fixed hard left and hard right when you link 2 channels together. Kind of cool. The next section of the fat channel is probably one of my favorites. This is a little clipboard section. It says copy, load, and save. This allows you to copy a fat channel setting to another place. So for example, let's look at down here at the end of the board. I've got 8 tracks of background vocals. So if I select channel 17, I can go ahead and, throw a little EQ on it. I can throw, compressor, a little limiter. And once I get the sound for channel 17, I want to copy it over to some of the other background vocals. Well, doing this on an analog board obviously would be tedious, one channel at a time. Watch how fast it is on the StudioLive. So now that I got channel 17 set up, I hit copy. It blinks saying, where do you want to copy it to? I want to copy it to 18, 19, 20, all the way through 24. Hit load, wha-bam, done. Try doing that on almost any other board. It's so fast to be able to copy channels. And again, the thing about live sound, hopefully everybody watching will relate to this. It's a battlefield, isn't it? It's like going into war, and it's real time. Stuff is happening. We tried to make the StudioLive, we tried to design it with that in mind. There's not a whole lot of like layering on this board. Channel 17 will always be channel 17. And it was made for speed. So that's one thing that you'll see as the demo goes on how fast it is to get around on the StudioLive. So now let's go ahead and play with the fat channel presets. Now, I just showed you this whole fat channel, and it's pretty, for those of you that are seasoned engineers, you're like, oh, great, frequency tunable gates and thresholds and all this. I'm going to go have fun for, a couple of weeks. Well, for others of us that are not so sophisticated sound-wise, we're like, okay, now how do I set the threshold for this djembe, and what's going to be my attack setting? And, a fat channel this sophisticated might be kind of overwhelming. Well, guess what? We have presets. And the board itself comes with tons of preset fat channel settings for different applications. So let's just take, for example, a snare drum. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a snare drum back for you to listen to. And we're going to just listen to it dry right now. And then I'm going to apply a fat channel to it. So here's my snare drum. Okay, so you hear a lot of bleed over on that snare drum. You hear the hi-hat coming through a little bit. Some cymbals. Okay, the other thing about snare drum is depending on how good your drummer is, he may be hitting at different velocities, so you might need to compress it. Well, let's just load in a fat channel setting, one of the factory presets, as a starting point. Okay, so make sure channel 2 is selected. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, once we've selected channel 2, you hit the load button right here. Now, as soon as I do that, here in the screen, I can scroll through a bunch of different presets. So we'll find one called snare drum, fat snare. And as soon as I hit recall, it's just going to basically dump that preset right into the board. So here we go. We're going to hit recall. Okay, definitely cleaned it up a lot. Now we can go in and kind of fine-tune that. So we want to, adjust the gate a little bit, maybe add a little bit more high end or low end or something like that. And we're able to do that very easily. And the other benefit is that I can hit the save control right here after I've made some tweaks, and we can save it for later use. So now it's a custom fat channel preset for your drummer, basically. The other thing that's really cool about this, I showed you how to do this on the board. Let me show you how to do it on Virtual Studio Live, okay, which is the computer control for the StudioLive. So I'm going to just pull up Virtual Studio Live. And one thing that you'll see here is, here is my channels right here. Here's a fat channel preset that I've saved. I've customized, and I saved it yesterday. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab it right here from the left. See right here? I'm going to grab it, I'm going to click it, and drag it right over to the snare. And wha-bam, there we go. Now I just drag and drop. So it's really that simple. This is a very, very good way for a lot of people, especially people that are intimidated by a big control surface, Hey, go grab the one that says Rick Snare and drag it to the snare channel, really pretty easy. Now, the other thing that I'm going to show you right now is let's talk about the compressor a little bit. Compression is one of those kind of mysterious things, I think, for a lot of people. When I think about one of the biggest problems in church sound, I would have to say it is the fact that you have a lot of different singers. Maybe you have different singers every Sunday, different teams. And, some of them are probably pretty well-trained vocalists, but a lot of them have never really sang outside of church, and they don't really have great mic technique. Anybody can relate to this? So you got the guy that, he likes to sing like this, way down here. And then you got the, I'm going to eat the mic kind of singer. And then you've got the, I'm kind of on and off the mic, and it's in and out and in and out. And so, what a compressor will do is help to even out the dynamics of these kind of singers, So what is dynamic range? Let's define that. First of all, dynamic range is basically the distance between the loudest note that a singer sings and the softest note. So you've got these singers that'll, sing it barely a whisper and then belt it out, well, from their whisper to their scream, that's the dynamic range. What the compressor will basically do is, compress that distance, and then using the gain makeup on the fat channel, which is this knob right here, once we compress the signal, we can bring it back up to the appropriate level. So what that does is basically it allows the softer passages to be heard easier, and then when the singer really belts it out, it's not going to hurt people in the audience. So let's just show a little example. I've got this vocal mic plugged in right now, and basically we're going to go to the input right here, and you can see basically when I'm barely hitting the microphone, barely talking into it, you see a certain level right here on the meter, okay? And right now, let me just take off everything. So now this is just completely flat. So now watch the level on the meter when I go from a whisper to a scream, okay? So watch the meter. So here's my normal kind of speaking volume, and then hold your ears. Here comes my yell, yay, hey! You see it kind of just jump up like that? Now what we can do is we can go ahead and apply some compression. So I'm going to go ahead and engage the compressor. We'll come down on the threshold, okay? And now you can look in the upper right hand. The StudioLive shows you the gain reduction. So as I start to hit it hard, hey! You see that red, you see more of those red LEDs come up. Basically what that is it's like having a sound guy riding a fader, So when I really hit it hard, it's going to basically, you're going to see more red lights. So here's kind of speaking volume, and here's hey! And so it basically catches those peaks. And now I can go to the gain makeup of that channel and bring it back up. And now what that means is my singer is going to be way more audible. You'll be able to hear them at when they're in more of the subtle kind of singing, especially if they're kind of on and off the mic. It really helps mixing.